In the heart of the royal capital, a massive celebration was underway. The people were enthralled, welcoming the one who was to marry the crown prince, as if a god had appeared. Everyone was captivated by the mere 14-year-old girl, driven to madness by her appearance and her words. This perfect little sister, Ceres, declared with a sinister smile that she would make herself everyone's queen. Amidst the adoring crowd, a young man named Lyall watched in disgust. Ceres addressed her followers, acknowledging that her ascension to crown princess might lead to war. She mused that there is nothing happier than being ruled by her, and that those who resist should be killed. Lyall recognized this as madness, realizing she was dragging the entire country into her twisted ambition. The story flashes back to 1 year before Ceres becomes the crown princess. She declared her desire to compete with her older brother to become the head of the Walt family. On her 13th birthday, while holding a new rapier, she made this proposal, and their parents happily agreed. Lyall is shown reeling in shock from a swift attack. The duel between the siblings was intense. A panting Lyall Walt recalls his past. He was once hailed as a child prodigy and a genius, deemed suitable as the heir. But his sister Ceres coolly asks if he is done yet. That legacy lasted only until his little sister Ceres surpassed him in every single aspect. Ceres taunts him, saying he swings his sword every day like a fool. She points out that he still cannot match a mere 13-year-old girl. She finds it hard to believe that a man from the Walt family, which has lasted for 250 years, could be so weak. Their father appears, agreeing with Ceres. He expresses his shame, unable to believe such a pathetic boy was born into the family. Lyall can only whisper his father's name in despair. Looking at Lyall with disgust, he declares that Lyall is no longer a member of the Walt family. He adds that he regrets, even for a moment, thinking of him as his son. Lyall's mother shares her husband's sentiment, wondering why such an incompetent child was born. She laments that despite his education, it was all a mess. She now realizes the time spent on him was wasted. With cold finality, his parents announce the successor. The heir to the Walt family is now Ceres. The news leaves Lyall utterly devastated. Lyall falls to his knees in defeat. He reflects that his sister surpassed him at age 8, and 5 years later nothing has changed. His father allowed this match knowing Lyall couldn't even scratch Ceres. He understands his situation better than anyone. Ever since his parents noticed Ceres' talent 5 years ago, he has never received a single word of praise. Before long, even the vassals and servants began to mistreat him, until no one looked at him anymore. And so, he agreed to Ceres' challenge. Desperate to be seen as family again, he forces himself back to his feet. He is determined to try one more time. Screaming that it is not over yet, Lyall lunges forward. He continues his desperate attack. His parents watch in shock at his unexpected resolve. Ceres, however, remains unimpressed. She knows that no matter how many times he tries, the outcome will always be the same. With blinding speed, she sidesteps his thrust. She lands a clean cut on his leg. Lyall cries out in pain, realizing he could not see her move at all. Ceres playfully wonders where she should aim next. Laughing, she compliments his effort. She goads him to come at her with more. Lyall is covered in wounds from her attacks. He is overwhelmed by her speed. Before he can react, Ceres lands another flurry of strikes. Ceres looks down on him with a vicious grin, demanding more and telling him to dance more skillfully. Despite the pain, Lyall grits his teeth and continues to fight. He realizes that none of the wounds are fatal, they are all shallow cuts. He understands that for Ceres, this entire duel is nothing more than child's play. Ceres admits that it is fun to ruin him, but compares fighting him to a scarecrow. She begins to summon dark magic. With a dark orb in her hand, she asks if he will entertain her a little more. In response to the new threat, Lyall quickly casts a defensive spell, creating an ice wall. Unfazed, Ceres counters with a powerful fire bullet, shattering his defense. Lyall is sent flying by an unexpectedly powerful fire bullet. He can't believe the force of the attack, which felt like being hit by a cinder block. From the sidelines, Ceres mockingly notes that he's barely hanging on. Unimpressed, Ceres conjures several more orbs of dark energy, wondering aloud how long he can possibly last against an onslaught like this. Lyall is shocked by her immense power. He quickly erects another ice wall for defense, questioning the source of her strength. She casually unleashes another fire bullet. Lyall struggles to withstand the assault, thinking it is too much. Before Lyall can react, Ceres appears directly behind him, taunting him about his meager abilities. He's stunned by her speed. She lands a solid punch, calling him a small fry. The blow sends Lyall staggering. He collapses to the ground. He forces himself up once more, facing his sister. Ceres watches him with a cruel smile. They clash again with immense force. The impact shatters the ground beneath them. Rubble is sent flying as they are both thrown back. Lyall is thrown back while Ceres watches calmly. He pants from exhaustion and sharp pain. He curses in frustration. He realizes he's giving his all while she remains far too strong. Ceres hasn't even broken a sweat. He reflects on the 5 years of relentless training. He has swung his saber countless times, yet he is utterly outmatched by Ceres, who is wielding a rapier for the first time, a fact she finds hilarious. Ceres taunts him from a distance, revealing she had 3 clear chances to kill him. She goads him, certain he can do better. A voice calls his name, Lyall. Overwhelmed, Lyall cries out, asking Ceres why she hates him so much after he protected her for so long. Her only response is a torrent of pure hatred, declaring she despises him more than anyone in the world. She casually admits she's forgotten the reason for her hatred, but dismisses it as unimportant. She tells him she's sick of seeing his face. With cold finality, she demands that he just disappear. Lyall is struck by her raw killing intent. He is filled with a final, desperate resolve. He grits his teeth, determined to land just one single hit. He will hit her no matter the cost. He channels all his remaining strength. For a moment, Ceres seems surprised by his ferocity. He unleashes a powerful swing, roaring a challenge at his sister. She easily parries his lunge. Lyall realizes his attack wasn't enough to reach her. Undeterred, he grits his teeth. He pushes one step closer. He prepares for one final swing. He unleashes his final attack, a desperate, powerful slash. The attack lands, throwing her off balance. For a moment, Lyall believes he has finally reached her. Lyall believes his attack reached Ceres. However, his hope is short-lived. His attack was stopped by a protective charm hidden in her dress. Ceres looks down at him and calls him garbage. She glares with pure fury. Enraged that he managed to touch her, Ceres screams that she had generously allowed him to live this long. She commands him to disappear for good. He is to burn to ash this instant. Lyall desperately attempts to form another ice wall, sensing the danger. Ceres deems his efforts useless. She unleashes a massive firestorm. The onlookers declare the match over, praising Lady Ceres. However, one of them notices something. Against all odds, Lyall's ice wall is still standing. Behind it, Lyall is completely drained of mana. He realizes that this is how it all ends. Defeated and broken, Lyall is on his knees. He questions the very reason for his existence. He collapses as Ceres approaches. He desperately thinks for her not to touch his sword. She kicks him aside. Ceres picks up his treasured saber, noting its importance to him despite its worn state. She declares that he will no longer need it. She holds the saber before her. She shatters the blade into countless pieces with her power. Lyall reaches out in horror at the sight of his shattered sword. He remembers his father's voice, telling him that as a man of House Walt, he should carry a weapon of the highest quality. A memory surfaces of the day his father gave him that very saber. A young, happy Lyall thanks his father. His mother gently chides his father for spoiling Lyall. His father proudly looks on, speaking of Lyall's future and noble obligations. The memory of his father's encouraging words contrasts sharply with the present reality of his broken sword. Lying on the ground, defeated, Lyall accepts that he can't win and that nothing matters anymore. He knows that no matter how hard he works, he will never be recognized. He remembers his father's cold words, declaring Ceres their only child. His mother agrees, her only concern being her daughter's dirtied dress. As his life fades, he wonders if they are happy now that he's gone. He accepts that this is how he dies. In the darkness of his fading consciousness, Lyall hears disembodied voices. The voices sense someone nearby, a blood relative, though they can't pinpoint who it is. And then a glowing orb appears in the darkness. After he lost everything, when he was lost in the depths of despair, his eyes open to the new presence. He met Basil Walt. And Slay Walt. Crassel Walt was there, as was Max Walt. At the Futch family mansion, Novem receives grave news. A messenger confirms that Lord Lyall has been banished from the Walt estate, and an official notice annulling their engagement has also arrived. Without hesitation, Novem informs her father that she will go to Lord Lyall's side immediately. Her father sighs, remarking that she has always been unfazed and seemingly aware of everything, even as a child. He offers her the Futch family's heirloom cane. He explains it can provide excuses if the Walts become suspicious of their support for Lyall. Novem asks her father only to turn a blind eye to her actions, concerned that his direct help would bring trouble upon him. He counters that suspicion will fall on him regardless, so he insists on this small gesture of support. As she prepares to leave, he reflects on her unyielding nature, accepting her for who she is. Elsewhere, a bandaged Lyall awakens in a feverish state, his body burning with an intense heat. He struggles to sit up, panting heavily from the effort. Disoriented, he looks around the unfamiliar room, wondering where he is. A voice from the doorway announces that he has finally regained consciousness. Zell explains with relief that Lyall has been unconscious for 3 days. Lyall recognizes the old man by his bedside as Zell, the family's gardener since his grandfather's time, and laments that he couldn't provide better medical care. Lyall gratefully thanks Zell for saving his life, lamenting that he has nothing left to offer in return. Zell observes that the situation at the mansion has become strange, questioning what could have caused such a turn of events. Zell explains that the servants now only speak of Lyall's sister, ignoring the cruel treatment Lyall received. He mentions that their father even named her as the heir, a decision that would have enraged their strict grandfather, the previous head of the house. Lyall recalls his grandfather, a powerful aristocrat who served as the king's advisor and intimidated even his own son. To Lyall, however, he was always a doting grandfather. The memory is painful now that he has been disinherited after his grandfather held such high hopes for him. Lyall expresses his despair, believing even his grandfather would be disappointed in him now. Zell reassures him, certain the old master would have understood his plight. Overwhelmed with grief, Lyall feels utterly lost without the protection his grandfather would have provided. Later that night, Lyall sees Zell sleeping uncomfortably in a chair and realizes with a pang of guilt how much of a burden he has been on the old man. Mortified, Lyall buries his face in his blanket, feeling like a pest. Suddenly, a strange crackle of energy is heard. Faint voices begin whispering in his ear. One voice calls him pathetic and tells him to be strong. Another questions if this wimp is truly his descendant. A third voice angrily defends him from the harsh criticism. The ancestral voices bicker amongst themselves, with one urging the others to calm down and see that Lyall is in pain. Another suggests they postpone their discussion until he recovers, and they reluctantly agree to leave him be for the time being. The next day, Lyall is quiet at the breakfast table, lost in thought. Zell, concerned, asks if the food is all right. Lyall quickly snaps out of it, reassuring him that the stew is delicious. After the meal, Lyall tells Zell he needs to discuss something with him. With newfound resolve, he announces his intention to become an adventurer to shape his future. Zell listens thoughtfully to his plan. Lyall admits that while becoming an adventurer is not his dream, it is his only path to independence and a fresh start. He feels it is too dangerous to remain in Zell's hut on the mansion grounds. He fears what his sister, Ceres, might do if she found him there. He knows he must leave soon to avoid causing Zell more trouble, and Zell seems to understand. Zell comments that Lyall's grandfather would be shocked by this decision, as he disliked adventurers. He explains this was due to past events, but expresses his faith in Lyall's judgment. Reassured, Lyall dreams of a successful future, hoping to earn a fortune as a top-class adventurer. Lyall promises to one day repay Zell for his kindness. The sentiment makes the old gardener laugh with joy, saying he will look forward to that day. Lyall feels a deep happiness from their conversation, wishing he had forged this bond with Zell much earlier. Zell advises Lyall that if he wishes to become an adventurer, he will need to go to the headquarters in the free city of Bame. Lyall recognizes Bame as the independent merchant city that operates without a ruling lord. The city's prosperity as a trade hub attracts all sorts of people, from merchants and adventurers to criminals. Lyall concludes that Bame seems too challenging for a beginner and is better suited for experienced veterans. Another option presented is the renowned, though distant, academic city of Aramthurst. For those seeking combat and mercenary work, the border town of Oran is suggested due to its frequent conflicts. Lyall studies a map, noting the locations of Bame and Aramthurst, and sees that Oran is the closest option. Having made his choice, he firmly decides to become an adventurer in Oran. Zell expresses his concern, warning Lyall against being reckless and reminding him of the grim fate that befalls many overconfident young adventurers. Lyall reassures Zell, stating his resolve to survive using his own strength. Zell quietly acknowledges Lyall's determination. Zell then asks Lyall if he has noticed anything strange while staying at his house. Lyall describes having strange dreams where voices shout at him, saying unsettling things. Zell, with a look of shock, reveals the most bizarre detail. The voices ramble on about him being their descendant. Lyall connects the dots, realizing the voices must be his ancestors, and complains that their constant nagging feels like a curse. Zell can't help but find the situation amusing. Changing the subject, he tells Lyall that it is getting late and he should get some rest. Zell compliments Lyall, saying the clothes he provided look good on him and fit perfectly. He then offers Lyall a pouch of money for his journey. Lyall is taken aback by the offer of money. He immediately insists that he cannot possibly accept it. Zell sternly insists, calling the money absolutely essential and telling him to consider it an investment for now. Lyall reluctantly agrees to borrow the money, and Zell is glad to hear it. Lyall expresses his gratitude and swears to repay the kindness tenfold. Zell explains that he is just happy to have fulfilled a promise he made to the previous head of the house. Lyall is surprised to hear of a promise made with his grandfather. Inside a long box lies an ornate necklace with a large spherical pendant. Lyall curiously asks what the object is. Zell reveals it was entrusted to him by Lyall's grandfather as an heirloom for him to inherit. Lyall is stunned to learn the heirloom is for him. Lyall holds the ornate pendant in his gloved hand. A flash of insight strikes him. He realizes this is not just jewelry, but a powerful gem. Zell confirms it is a jewel, an ancient magic tool passed down through the heads of House Walt. The gem is a device that allows a single user to inherit all the completed arts of its previous owners. However, with modern advancements, such gems are now considered obsolete. Zell explains that the previous head wanted it decorated appropriately for his position. Unfortunately, he passed away not long after. Zell explains that he tried to pass the gem on to Lyall's father, but he had changed, and Zell couldn't bring himself to do it. His father's focus was entirely on the young lady, and it felt as if everyone had gone mad. Lyall concludes that this is why Zell decided to hold on to it. Zell agrees, certain that it's what Lyall's grandfather would have wanted. Lyall understands and accepts the family treasure, promising to take good care of it. He opens the door to depart. Before leaving, he swears to Zell that he will return someday. He promises to then repay Zell for all his kindness. Zell smiles warmly, telling Lyall that he will eagerly await his return. Lyall waves goodbye, finally embarking on his journey. With Lyall's departure, a weight that Zell had been shouldering for years is finally lifted. Zell reflects that while the boy still has a lot of growing to do, he believes that Lyall will be all right on his own. Elsewhere, Lyall approaches a merchant and asks if he can ride along on his wagon. The merchant agrees to give him a ride to the next town, provided Lyall pays him. Lyall counters the offer, suggesting he act as a bodyguard for a free ride, but the merchant laughs at him. When Lyall reveals he is a magician, the surprised merchant immediately changes his mind and welcomes him aboard. Lyall thanks the merchant, and the merchant teasingly asks if the young lady with him is his girlfriend. Lyall is completely caught off guard by the question. The young woman, Novem, steps forward and calmly answers yes. Novem boldly declares that she is his fiancée, leaving Lyall stunned as he recognizes her. His fiancée, Novem Futch, has appeared before him. Prepared for travel, she asks to accompany Lord Lyall on his journey. In a flashback, a young Lyall tells a young woman that she has terrible luck for being forced upon a failure like him. He dismisses her, wanting to get back to his training, while internally acknowledging she is his childhood friend who became his fiancée at 13. He identifies her as Novem Futch, who always smiled kindly at him despite his cold treatment. A caravan travels along a road on the outskirts of the Vice territory. A young woman sits quietly in the back of the wagon. Lyall Walt stares ahead with a look of intense focus. Inside the wagon, Lyall questions the woman about her presence. She explains that it is her duty to remain with Lord Lyall, leaving him flabbergasted. Lyall insists Novem should go home, explaining that he's been kicked out and their engagement is cancelled. Novem counters that she cannot return, and her sincere desire is to stay by his side. The wagon driver remarks on how nice it is to be young, prompting an embarrassed Lyall to tell him to stop eavesdropping. The driver finds the young couple's situation frustrating. Lyall shouts that he has lost everything: his house, status, honor, and money. Novem calmly replies that even so, she will still follow him. Flustered, Lyall tries to reject her, saying he is not interested, though he seems happy to hear her words. Lyall fabricates a story about becoming an adventurer and living a life of debauchery to push Novem away. With a gentle smile, she tells him not to mind her, as she has made up her own mind to follow and serve him. Still concerned, Lyall asks about her parents, but she explains her older brother is the heir. She adds that her father even gifted her the family heirloom, which makes Lyall question what the Fut's family is thinking. Lyall exclaims in disbelief, questioning if her family is stupid for giving away their heirloom. Novem tells him to do as he pleases. She then smiles brightly, declaring that she will indeed do just that. Lyall can only watch, defeated. A voice only Lyall can hear calls him a loved, spoiled brat. Lyall yells at the driver to stay out of it, but the man insists he didn't say anything. He turns to Novem, asking if she heard a teasing voice. Novem apologizes, stating she hasn't heard anything. Lyall mutters that he must be more tired than he thought. Novem looks at him with concern, asking if he is feeling okay. He suddenly falls backward, telling her not to worry and to pay him no mind. Lying down, he reasons that his injuries probably haven't healed completely. The voices return, with one commenting on how envious it is that Lyall has a fiancée who is completely in love with him. Lyall jumps up, shouting that he heard the voices again. He demands to know if Novem heard them too. The driver replies that he heard nothing and asks if Lyall is feeling unwell. Lyall is left sweating and confused. Lyall tries to play it off as nothing. He begins to wonder if he is losing his mind, since he is the only one hearing the voices. Concluding that he is just tired, he decides to get some rest as they arrive in a town. At the inn's front desk, Lyall is shocked to hear there is only one room available. The innkeeper tells them to decide quickly, as the room might get taken by someone else. To Lyall's shock, Novem quickly agrees that they will share the room. The innkeeper gives them the key and suggests the pub next door for dinner. Novem accepts the arrangement, and the innkeeper thanks her, which puzzles Lyall. At a nearby pub, Lyall asks Novem why they are carrying their luggage with them. She tells him to pay it no mind and that she will handle the details. Lyall seems confused but accepts her response. A disembodied voice comments on how Lyall's cluelessness about the world is making them anxious. The voices in Lyall's head suddenly return, leaving him in a state of shock. Noticing his pale face, Novem asks Lord Lyall if he is feeling unwell. Lyall tries to laugh it off, reassuring her that he's fine while wondering if the voices are only in his head. Novem reminds a distracted Lyall that it is time to order their meal. Startled, Lyall realizes they need to order for themselves. She confidently orders 2 of the daily specials and some hot tea for after they finish. Novem cheerfully notes that the special is chicken, something to look forward to. The voices in Lyall's head resume their torment, mocking him as pitiful and discourteous. While most of the voices hurl abuse, one seems to be on his side, but the constant barrage leaves him frustrated. The dinner felt like an eternity to Lyall, leaving him completely exhausted. Novem announces that she has fetched hot water for them. Lyall is confused by the water buckets, asking if the inn has a bath. She explains that this inn has no baths, and that most only provide hot water for sponge bathing. Novem clarifies that inns with private baths are extremely expensive. Lyall says he has silver and worries about her going without a bath, but she tells him it is no good. She insists they must save their money, as it is a precious resource that could run out quickly. Novem confirms to herself that this is how things are. Lyall blushes, accepting the situation. Feeling refreshed, Lyall thanks her as she finishes. One of the voices then tells him to wait outside. Lyall asks why he needs to leave. Novem offers to wash his underwear and let it dry. He remains silent, not understanding. She fidgets, unable to finish her request. The voices chastise him, wondering if he is dense or just pretending. One of the voices yells at him, explaining that Novem cannot wash while he is in the room. The realization finally hits Lyall. He awkwardly tells Novem he will wait right outside if she needs him. Lyall sits alone in the hallway. He ponders the nature of his hallucinations. He notes that while they mostly curse him, they sometimes give him advice. While Novem washes inside, Lyall begins to lose consciousness in the hallway, recalling that he heard the voices at his old home and concluding it was not a dream. A mysterious voice greets him. Lyall's eyes snap open in shock. He finds himself in a grand room with a large, round table surrounded by empty chairs. Completely disoriented, Lyall shouts, asking where he is. A different voice complains about how noisy he is. The chairs around the table are now occupied by several men. Basil Walt, a large man with a fur collar, criticizes Lyall's lifeless eyes and says he has no spirit. Lyall is bewildered, exclaiming that he was alone just a second ago. He struggles to understand what is happening, recalling that he was just at the inn. He wonders who these people are that have suddenly appeared and questions if it is real. Max Walt adjusts his glasses, indicating he understands the situation presented. The discussion revolves around Ceres, whose capabilities were so desired that a transfer of succession was considered. Lyall looks down, flustered, as he is asked to give his account of the events. Struggling for words, Lyall begins his explanation. He praises his sister's perfection, highlighting her extraordinary aura above all else. Basil expresses his shock, questioning the very concept of an aura. Basil yells at the boy, demanding a clearer explanation. Panicked, Lyall tries to rephrase his thoughts, explaining that his sister has a captivating presence. Basil demands that Lyall elaborate on his claims. Lyall explains that things were different before, but the household dynamic shifted when he turned 10. He describes how Ceres became the center of attention for everyone in the vast estate. Max confirms his understanding of the situation. Ceres was widely seen as the more suitable heir. He formally requests that Crassel, the seventh head, provide a more detailed explanation. Crassel quietly considers the information he has heard. The grandfather remembers Ceres as a child, noting she was cute but not exceptionally talented. He contrasts this with his memory of Lyall, whom he always considered remarkably gifted. Lyall bitterly reflects that the family's problems began after his grandfather's passing. Lyall looks back on his relationship with his sister, questioning when their bond fractured. Crassel proposes that the change occurred when Ceres was a young girl, possibly due to manifesting an art. Basil enthusiastically adds that such a sudden shift could be explained by a powerful charming ability. Slay calmly refutes the idea, stating that the timeline for such mastery doesn't add up. He reveals that Lyall has an art of his own, though the boy is oblivious to it. Shocked, Lyall questions if he has truly manifested an art. Lyall anxiously asks the council about the nature of his art. Slay explains that the blue jewel Lyall possesses indicates a support-type art. The three categories of arts, frontline, rearguard, and support, are laid out, confirming Lyall's classification. Crassel warns Lyall about the constant mana drain from his art and the danger it poses. Lyall has a moment of realization, connecting the mana drain to his recent exhaustion. Basil explains that they are the primary cause of the drain, as all their actions are fueled by Lyall's power. Lyall reacts with wide-eyed shock to this disturbing news. Lyall is thrown back into reality, completely disoriented. A worried Novem finds him and calls out his name. He asks where they are and she explains their location. Believing it was all a dream, Lyall gets up as Novem suggests he is very tired and should rest. The ancestors discuss the girl, noting her identity as Lyall's fiancée from the Futch family. A cacophony of voices from his ancestors rings in Lyall's head. Confused by his strange behavior, Novem asks him what is the matter. Lyall realizes that he is the only one who can hear the voices, making him appear erratic to others. Lyall holds the jewel, the source of the voices he's hearing. He understands with dawning horror that his conversation with the ancestors was real. In a grand hall, Crassel Walt proposes they establish rules for addressing one another to avoid confusion. Basil Walt boisterously declares everyone should simply call him Lord Basil, but Crassel tells him to shut up. Slay Walt calmly observes that a fight is brewing between Basil and Crassel. Slay suggests that Max Walt should mediate, much to Max's dismay. Slay teases Max, remarking that his glasses make him a perfect fit for the role of facilitator. Adjusting his glasses, Max suggests they refer to each other by their generational titles. His voice then addresses Lyall, who is seen sweating in his sleep, wishing him the best. The scene shifts to the city of Remorant. As Lyall and Novem walk up a stone path, she directs his attention to something. Lyall looks over, wondering what has caught her eye. They discover a monument dedicated to the hero of Bansheim, Slay Walt. Lyall recognizes the name as the third head of the Walt family. The spirit of Slay Walt appears before him, looking utterly shocked to be called a hero. Slay stands there angrily, demanding to know who is responsible for this. Lyall quickly claims he saw a bug, realizing he is the only one who can see the ghost. Max Walt's spirit appears and explains to a stunned Slay that he is remembered as a hero general whose death led to a great victory. Slay scoffs at the notion, stating that the awful war was Bansheim's fault and that it would be better if the monument never existed. Lyall reflects on this, concluding that the official records of Bansheim's victory are far from reality. Novem encourages Lyall by saying she is sure he will one day become as fine a man as Lord Slay. With a confident smile, she tells him to have some faith in himself. Lyall seems taken aback by her words. Their conversation is interrupted when someone shouts that it's time for their carriage to depart. While traveling by carriage, Lyall explains that they changed their destination to Darian. The decision was based on a story from a peddler who advised that Darian would be a better and safer fit for them than Oren. Meanwhile, one of Lyall's ancestors complains internally that Lyall can't decide anything for himself. A few days later, they arrive in the city of Darian. Stepping out into the city, Lyall stretches and exclaims that they have finally arrived. As Lyall begins to relax, one of his ancestors warns him to stay on guard and help Novem with her luggage. They remind him of a previous warning. The voices tell him he is not in the mansion anymore. Lyall gulps, taking their words to heart. Basil's voice then chides him for his lack of awareness, pointing out the basic anti-theft measures on the buildings. Lyall recalls his grandfather's indulgent attitude, thinking it's natural for someone of his rank to delegate. Crassel's voice counters sternly, reminding him that he has been cast out and cannot afford to be naive. Slay adds that he should be more considerate of Novem, and Lyall apologizes. He then grabs the luggage and tells Novem they should go look for the guild. Lyall rudely shouts at a group of people, asking for the location of the guild. A group of 3 adventurers stops, and one of them asks if Lyall and Novem are newbie adventurers. He points them down the main street towards a large building, identifying it as the city's Adventurers Guild. Lyall and Novem thank the group for the directions. The adventurers watch them go. A woman named Rachel teases her companion, Rondo, for his attempt to sound like a seasoned pro. Their other companion, Ralph, impatiently tells them to stop talking and get a move on. Rondo wonders how he's supposed to respond to Rachel's teasing. Lyall and Novem arrive at the Grand Darian's Guild building. With a determined look, Lyall thinks to himself that this is where his life as an adventurer begins. Upon entering, they are met with the sight of a massive, bustling hall filled with adventurers. Lyall is surprised that the first floor resembles a market warehouse, but Novem explains it's for exchanging monster materials for money. She informs him that the main receptionist desk is located on the second floor. Lyall looks up the stairs with a determined expression. They walk past the crowded first floor. On the second floor, Lyall observes 3 receptionists and notes the uneven queues. He sees that the woman on the right seems to be the most popular. Crassel's voice advises him to choose the intimidating-looking man on the far left. Lyall is hesitant to approach the menacing-looking man. Another ancestor agrees, stating that the receptionist on the left is what Lyall needs right now. The ancestors explain that the popular woman on the right is slow and judges people by their appearance. In contrast, the woman in the middle dispenses paperwork swiftly and quietly. However, the tough-looking man on the left is neat, polite, and courteous to everyone. Lyall understands that the man's demeanor shows he takes pride in his work. He decides to line up for the large man, which surprises Novem. Lyall and Novem approach the large receptionist's desk. The man greets them with an intense aura, asking if they are newcomers who have come to register as adventurers. Lyall, though intimidated by his incredible aura, nervously confirms that they are. The receptionist prepares to proceed. Lyall expresses his relief that their task is finally over, while Novem thanks him for his hard work. They discuss the receptionist, Mr. Hawkins, who, despite his intimidating appearance, was surprisingly kind and helpful. As they walk through the town, Lyall feels tired and suggests they find an inn to rest. Lyall internally blames his fatigue on his annoying ancestors. As soon as Lyall arrived at the inn, he was summoned into the duel by the founder, Basil Walt, leaving him with very little mana. Basil dismisses Lyall's complaint, telling him to shut up and listen because he is the only ancestor present. Kneeling before the imposing figure, Lyall reluctantly agrees, wishing he had a chair. Basil announces that he wants to confirm some details about Lyall's sister, Ceres. Basil asks Lyall to confirm his previous statement that Ceres has a strange, perfect atmosphere and that her influence drove the Walt house insane. Basil presses further, asking if Ceres seemed unnaturally bewitching despite her young age. Lyall recalls that she was described more as a beauty than cute. He also remembers that she had been receiving marriage proposals almost daily since her demeanor changed. Basil listens intently, taking in the information. Basil asks Lyall if he has ever heard of the courtesan beauty Agrissa who turned an entire country upside down. Lyall replies that he only knows what he's read in books, that corruption in the old centrist kingdom allowed her to rise, eventually leading to war. Basil is unimpressed with this answer, complaining about careless historians. Frustrated, he decides to get to the point. Basil begins his story, explaining that he was born 50 years after the founding of the Bansam kingdom. When he was 10, he heard stories about the previous age from an old, long-lived former soldier. This soldier told him first-hand accounts of what was known as Agrissa's War. According to the old soldier's tale, men fought and killed for Agrissa as if trapped in a dream, acting not out of love or hate but simply for her sake. Everything that happened, all the death and conflict, was done simply for the sake of Agrissa's smile. Basil continues the story, explaining that as soon as Agrissa died, everyone seemed to snap out of their trance. The soldiers were left bewildered, questioning why they had even been fighting in the first place. Bringing the conversation back to the present, Lyall asks if this story sounds familiar. Basil asks Lyall if this story sounds similar to the current state of House Walt. Lyall realizes the chilling similarity to the infatuation everyone in the Walt house has with Ceres. Basil explains his theory that monsters like Agrissa, a heretical god's child, always appear at the turning points of history. He describes them as humans who have received blessings from an evil god, heralding an age where many are fated to die. Basil states that this is his final conclusion. Lyall listens in horror as Basil begins to reveal his conclusion about Ceres. Basil declares that Ceres is the heretical god's child, leaving Lyall to grapple with the true identity of his younger sister. Lyall's position as heir and his very existence were stripped away by his sister Ceres, leaving him in despair. However, his life was saved by an elderly man who lived in a nearby hut. There Lyall received a gemstone-encrusted heirloom, a true treasure passed down from his grandfather, the previous head of the family. This jewel awakened with the memories of the past 7 heads, and with it in his possession, Lyall's journey to rise to greatness is about to begin. An ancestor commands a kneeling Lyall to heed his words. The ancestor begins to speak about Lyall's sister, Ceres. He reveals her true nature as the so-called heretical god's child. Lyall wonders about the possibility of getting an advisor. It is explained that the guild can arrange for a trustworthy adventurer to instruct them through an official request. While Lyall sees the merit in getting instruction, Basil dismisses the idea as unnecessary. Crassel warns Lyall not to listen to Basil, whom he calls an idiot. The guild receptionist asks for Lyall's opinion on the matter, personally recommending the dedicated course. Lyall browses the booklet, seeing they can choose their instruction type. Upon seeing the price, both Lyall and Basil are stunned by the exorbitant cost. Lyall is caught in the middle of his ancestors' conflicting opinions about the cost. Feeling the pressure, Lyall suggests they choose the cheaper general course. Novem immediately and firmly refuses his suggestion, much to his surprise. Novem points out a critical flaw in the general course: the instructors change every day. She elaborates that this frequent rotation would prevent them from building a proper rapport with any single instructor. With sparkling determination, she declares that this investment is crucial for his future as the head of House Walt. Novem passionately argues that the 20 gold is a declaration of their intent to receive the best possible instruction for Lyall's future. Novem seems slightly embarrassed after her outburst. Lyall is stunned into silence by her words. The sheer force of her devotion hits him, and his ancestors cheer in admiration. Lyall agrees with her reasoning but questions how they will afford it, only for Novem to say she already has the gold. She urges him not to worry about the money and to focus on his training. Lyall asks if the money was a gift from the Futch family. Hesitantly, Novem begins to reveal the true origin of the funds. She explains that she sold the clothes and tools that had been prepared for her engagement to Lyall. Lyall is shocked and immediately apologizes. Novem adds that she did it to avoid inconveniencing her parents. His ancestors react with a mix of sorrow and understanding. The realization hits Lyall. Novem sold her dowry, an unwed lady's most prized possession, for him. The ancestors are in an uproar over the sacrifice Novem has made. Crassel advises Lyall that to repay her devotion, he must succeed and earn the money to replace what she lost. Novem tells a shaken Lyall not to worry, insisting it was her own choice. With a serene glow, Novem states she has no regrets as long as it helps his dream come true. Lyall is struck by a powerful wave of emotion, his eyes wide with shock. Lyall's heart pounds uncontrollably as his ancestors try to calm him down. He struggles to comprehend the intense emotions welling up inside him. The feelings are so powerful that he cannot put them into words. His mind is left blank save for a single lingering question. An anguished Lyall demands to know why Novem is doing so much for him. He reminds her that their circumstances have changed, he's not a noble and they are no longer engaged, as even his parents have given up on him. He calls himself hopeless and questions what possible reason she could have to stay with him. He yells that after everything she has seen, she must realize that any effort on his behalf is wasted. He collapses, reminding her that she already knows how he was cast out from his home. Kneeling in front of the despairing Lyall, Novem tells him he is a splendid man who always worked his hardest. She praises his resolve, saying he never gave in and chose to strive for improvement rather than flee. Lyall refutes her praise, insisting that he didn't refuse to run away, but rather lacked the courage to do so. He admits with tears in his eyes that he was terrified. The object of his terror was Ceres. Unable to flee, he struggled naively, hoping for some reward, and now sees himself as nothing but a coward. He cries out that all he ever wanted was for someone to look his way. He begs her to stop, insisting that he is not the man she imagines, and that her presence will cause her to leave just like everyone else. He believes that following a failure like him will bring her no happiness. He is stunned as Novem's voice reaches him. She reveals that she has always been watching him. Novem embraces Lyall tightly, comforting him. She explains that she has seen him working tirelessly and alone at his estate countless times and has even called out to him. She recalls that he was so absorbed in his studies and training that he never had a moment to spare for her. Lyall reflects that his desperation caused him to neglect everything around him. She mentions her family's low status and how they were disrespected behind the scenes. She recounts a time when she was frequently harassed and excluded by other children. But Lyall would always come to her defense, driving the bullies away. Lyall tries to downplay his actions, suggesting his memory is fuzzy. Novem firmly rejects his attempt, insisting that his support was a great relief to her back then. She tearfully remembers how truly happy she was when the engagement proposal from him arrived. From that day on, she swore in her heart to always be there for him when he needed her. She cuts off his self-deprecation by hugging him tightly, telling him that he does have value and she believes in him completely. Novem promises to always be there, watching over him, because she understands his worth. Lyall lashes out in despair, claiming everyone says that before they abandon him. She reaffirms her commitment, promising to stay by his side forever because she has always yearned for him. In a radiant, angelic form, Novem makes a simple request: just let her love him. She tells a shocked Lyall that his acceptance of her love is more than enough for her. She declares that to her, he is someone worthy of devotion, and that is her decision to make. She asks him to never again speak of himself as worthless. Crying into her shoulder, Lyall quietly agrees and thanks her. The setting shifts to the grand building of Darian's guild. In Lyall's mind, his ancestor Basil mockingly repeats his emotional plea for someone to look his way. Slay smirks, teasing him about secretly wanting to be by Ceres' side. Novem calmly confirms the details of their request with the guild master, while Lyall is tormented by his ancestor's taunts about his recent emotional breakdown. The guild master Hawkins asks for a final confirmation on their request for a personal instructor. A woman with short dark hair tells Hawkins to simply follow through with the request since they are paying for it. The guild master asks if the woman is an acquaintance of Hawkins. Hawkins confirms she is and prepares to introduce her. Hawkins formally introduces the veteran adventurer, Zelfi, who will serve as their personal instructor upon the guild's approval of their request. Lyall is stunned when his family members suggest he make Novem his wife. Walt doesn't understand what Novem sees in such a lost cause, but states that Lyall won't find a better girl. The words pierce Lyall, labeling him as weak, naive, broke, and exiled. Another family member points out that since Lyall has been banished, the family's marriage rules no longer apply to him, and with Novem as the other party, there would have been no issue regardless. Basil Walt, confused, asks what these precepts even are. The list includes being outstandingly attractive, healthy, physically strong, intelligent, having clear skin, and excellent magical talent. The ancestors erupt into an argument, with one questioning who started such a ridiculous tradition and another accusing Basil of feigning ignorance. Lyall, looking on, wonders if there's something seriously wrong with his family. A contract is signed, completing their agreement. Lyall states that from now on, he and his party will be in her care. The instructor, Miss Zelfi, confirms that she is pleased to make their acquaintance. Zelfi notes that it is unusual for newcomers to hire a full-time instructor and warns them she has no intention of going easy. Lyall and his companion agree to her terms, asking her to be as strict as necessary. Pleased with their responses, Zelfi prepares to give her first instruction. He finds himself cleaning out filthy gutters. Lyall wonders why he has to do such a menial job. Zelfi tells Lyall to stop complaining and keep working. She reminds him that he gave his word to follow her policies when he signed the contract. Lyall protests that he doesn't see what this has to do with his training, but Zelfi retorts that she won't allow him to be selective with his jobs. Novem offers to switch places with Lyall, but Zelfi forbids her from spoiling him. She explains that this sort of work is the foundation of a functioning society. Zelfi points out that Lyall is a pampered former aristocrat tossed into the common world. She believes this experience is necessary for him to learn that his comfortable life was supported by others doing undesirable labor. Lyall's ancestors debate his situation, arguing that there are better ways for him to learn about the world than cleaning gutters, especially given his solid lineage. The others start chattering about his impressive heritage, the bloodline of Ceres royalty. They express that it would be a waste to let a magician's bloodline as refined as his die out, and the constant noise makes Lyall feel dizzy. Overwhelmed, Lyall collapses into the muck. His ancestors cry out in alarm as others rush to help the collapsed rookie. Lyall lies motionless, unable to move. Zelfi observes that he has even less stamina than she thought and decides that they will build up his strength through more hard labor. Judged to be lacking in physical endurance, Lyall was forced to perform hard labor every single day. Zelfi shows him his first B grade. She informs him that he is finally producing good results and has passed the exam. Lyall is relieved to have finally received some praise, understanding that a good grade means the client is happy. Nearby, a large adventurer angrily questions why he received a D grade. An official calmly explains it was because he was caught pushing his work onto others. The adventurer denies the accusation, claiming he was keeping watch. The disgruntled adventurer and the official walk past Zelfi. Zelfi asks what he wants. Lyall looks on, confused by the interaction. The man rudely shoves his hand toward her face, telling the woman to get out of his way. The man trembles as Zelfi strikes him. Zelfi reacts with incredible speed. She delivers a powerful blow to his stomach that sends him flying. The man coughs up spit from the impact. She firmly grabs his wrist, stopping his advance. Zelfi twists the man's arm and trips him. Lyall watches in shock as the man hits the ground. She pins him to the ground in a painful hold. Leaning in close, she coldly asks him to repeat what he just said. The adventurer trembles, trying to protest that his grade was unfair. The official cuts him off, stating that the site supervisor saw him slacking off. Zelfi tells Lyall to head back to the guild to collect his reward and pick up Novem. Lyall agrees, while his ancestors comment on Novem's role as a watchdog for the guild. With a slight smile, Zelfi tells Lyall she will see him tomorrow. Novem expresses her amazement at Lyall earning 8 large copper coins. Lyall explains that while it was tough, he did his best, and learns Novem earned 6 large copper coins. He sighs, lamenting that their combined total is less than the 15 coins an adult can supposedly make in a day. A blonde woman approaches them, asking if they have finished work for the day. Rachel introduces herself and explains she needs to earn some money while her 2 frontline party members are resting. Her party consists of herself, Ralph the spearman and Rondo the warrior, and their usual quests are hard on the vanguards. Rachel changes the subject, complimenting Novem on her popular penmanship. Lyall cheers for Novem, who modestly insists it's an exaggeration. Rachel reveals she's in awe that Novem earned 11 large copper coins and asks for tips to improve her own work. Lyall is stunned, realizing the truth, while his ancestors note that Novem was just being considerate. An ancestor's voice mocks Lyall, pointing out how worked up he is and how it's expected for Novem to earn more than him. The voice continues to taunt him, asking if he was genuinely relieved to think she had earned less. Novem stammers, trying to explain the situation to a tense Lyall. Rachel looks at Lyall with concern, asking what's wrong and if he's feeling tired. Overcome with shame, Lyall is unable to speak. Lyall abruptly makes an excuse that he needs to head back first. He rushes out of the guild, leaving the two women behind. Novem and Rachel are left wondering why he left in such a hurry. Lyall runs frantically through the streets. He curses himself, wondering why he reacted that way. Lyall stops running, panting from exhaustion. Basil's voice scoffs that Lyall is supposed to be an adult but is throwing a tantrum like a child. Crassel tells Basil to shut up, accusing him of only ever provoking and belittling Lyall. The argument continues, with others chiming in that their words are just twisting the knife. Lyall snaps the chain of his jewel, screaming for the voices to be quiet. Basil's voice dares him to throw it away, claiming they don't want to waste their time on a crybaby. Tears well up in Lyall's eyes from the overwhelming frustration. He screams for them to leave him alone as he throws the jewel. The voices call him a stupid kid for actually throwing it. The jewel flies past a maid who had been watching from behind a wall. The jewel hits Arya with a loud thud, causing her to cry out in pain. Lyall, kneeling from his own fall, calls out an apology and asks if she is all right. Arya rubs her head in annoyance, wondering what is wrong with the person who hit her. As Lyall apologizes, Arya retorts that a simple apology won't be enough. She is surprised to see that Lyall, the one who threw the object, is crying. She picks up the jewel and tosses it back to Lyall, telling him to catch. Arya observes the decorative jewel and correctly guesses it is something precious to him. She shows him her own family heirloom, a gem hanging from her neck. Lyall admits his is an heirloom as well, and that he threw it after losing his temper. She scolds him, warning him that he was lucky she was the one he hit. Lyall apologizes again, acknowledging the truth in her words. An ancestor's voice explains that tossing the jewel won't silence them and details the difference between his advanced jewel and her simple gem. Arya's expression brightens as she thinks of something. Arya calls out to Lyall, noticing how upset he still is. She suggests that he visit the shop where she works. Lyall expresses concern, stating that he doesn't have much money. She tells him he's all good and invites him to come with her, promising to make it worthwhile. As his ancestors' voices chatter, Lyall remarks that her invitation is rather sudden. Arya smiles and tells Lyall it's okay, as she will service him herself. Lyall is completely flustered by her proximity and her words. He stammers, trying to understand what she means by her offer. Arya leans closer with a playful look, asking if he is really going to make her say it. As Lyall's heart pounds, his ancestors shout warnings, reminding him of Novem and telling him not to waste money. Following Arya's lead, Lyall finds himself in a vibrant, sparkling district. He is visibly flustered by the alluring women around them. Arya, still walking ahead, suddenly stops with a realization. In all the excitement, they never properly introduced themselves. The maid smiles and introduces herself as Arya Lockwood. A nervous Lyall replies with his own name, Lyall Walt. Within the duel, his ancestors are stunned, recognizing the name Lockwood and connecting her to the red gem Miss Alice. Crassel Walt wonders if the name Alice is significant. Basil Walt erupts, declaring that Miss Alice Lockwood was his first love. He exclaims that Arya is undoubtedly her descendant. The other ancestors are completely lost, wondering who these people are. Elsewhere, a group of women discuss Lyall, with one asking if they also think he has been behaving suspiciously recently. An elf-eared woman confirms that she does. A black-haired woman decides they need to get the facts straight. The woman recounts how Lyall ran off after discovering he made less money than Novem, only to return hours later completely refreshed. Starting the next day, he began disappearing daily. He invited the men from Rachel's party out with him. She then asks Novem directly if she and Lyall are in a physical relationship, which Novem denies, calling it the unfortunate reality. When asked about their relationship, Novem clarifies her connection to Lyall. She reveals that she is his ex-fiancée. Rachel is completely shocked by this revelation, imagining them as a pair of young lovers who have eloped. After her outburst, she apologizes for getting carried away while the black-haired woman tells her to calm down. Rachel cannot understand why Lyall would cheat. She describes Novem as gorgeous, willing, and having a great personality. Rachel adds that she is also very well endowed. Frustrated, the black-haired woman suggests they should take the initiative and catch him red-handed. That night, Lyall walks through the city with two companions. One of them admits he has been looking forward to these recent visits. The other agrees, thanking Lyall for the introduction. Lyall explains that he was also too embarrassed to visit a place like that by himself. They arrive at their destination, a building adorned with images of bunny girls. As they stand outside, one of the men admits to feeling guilty about Rachel. His friend quickly tells him it is dangerous to mention her name in a place like this. The door creaks open. Inside, Arya and a line of other maids warmly welcome them. Arya greets them, happy to see they returned. One of Lyall's friends impatiently cuts through the pleasantries, stating they already know why they are here. He declares that he's reached the limit of his patience. A moment later, a massive spread of desserts is presented to the three men, who look on with delight, agreeing it was well worth the wait. As the men happily indulge in the sweets, they comment on how delicious they are. Their celebration is cut short when the bell on the door rings. One enthusiastically declares his intention to conquer the entire menu. Lyall and his other friend are startled by the sudden interruption. A furious Rachel stands before them, having overheard his declaration. She menacingly asks if conquering a dessert menu is the reason they have been sneaking off every day. Novem and another companion stand with her, as Lyall and his friends stare in shock. The black-haired woman explains the situation. It is a dessert cafe primarily targeting men. She adds that its discreet entrance allows them to visit without embarrassment. Novem approaches and addresses Lyall. He is terrified and confused about what is happening. Lyall panics as his ancestor Basil tells him to calm down and just be honest about protecting Arya from sketchy men. Krasil scolds Basil for trying to complicate things, but Basil insists they cannot abandon someone as precious as Arya. A woman from the other party comments that while she's glad they weren't with some random woman, their skulking around still seems suspicious. With the situation decided, the women declare that the men will be treating them to a fun party with a sweets buffet. The women begin ordering large amounts of dessert, while Lyall apologizes profusely to Rachel. Lyall recalls how the misunderstanding about cheating was cleared, but it cost him his earnings and his dessert. Novem approaches Lyall with a serious look, telling him there is something she needs to say. Lyall sweats nervously as his ancestors' voices yell at him to kneel before her. He kneels, acknowledging that it was his decision to keep his visits a secret from Novem. Lyall grits his teeth, preparing himself for a slap. Novem holds out her hand, asking him to take what is in it. Lyall looks up, completely confused by her gesture. He recognizes the object in her hand as a silver coin. Still kneeling, Lyall is bewildered that instead of getting angry, she gave him money. Novem explains her reasoning, showing concern for his well-being and hard work. Stunned, Lyall listens as Novem encourages him to use the coin to treat his friends so as not to strain their relationship. His ancestors remark on how their dynamic resembles an old married couple, despite Novem's young age. Krasil concludes that from his perspective, Lyall is simply Novem's hopeless gigolo. The word gigolo echoes in Lyall's mind, filling him with dread as he imagines a future of being given an allowance. Lyall wonders how long he can continue on like this. He laments that he would have preferred getting slapped. The scene shifts to his ancestors, where Krasil angrily confronts Basil. Krasil questions what it matters if Arya is the descendant of Basil's first love. The others chime in, accusing Basil of self-gratification and planning to use Lyall to fulfill his own desires. Basil passionately declares that if it were not for Miss Alice, House Walt would never have come into existence. The other ancestors express their doubt, stating they have no record of any relationship with House Lockwood. Slamming the table, Basil explains that he became independent because he wanted to marry Miss Alice, but his status was too low. Max sighs, summarizing that their founder established the entire household simply because he wanted to marry his lover. Slay smirks, asking Basil if he got dumped since they never ended up married. Basil sheepishly clarifies that they had never actually spoken, and she was married by the time he came to pick her up. The other ancestors are left completely speechless by this admission. Max, nursing a headache, realizes their entire household was founded on their ancestors' attempt to woo a stranger. Krasil argues that none of them would exist if he had failed, but Basil calls it being young and reckless. Basil insists it is destiny that their descendants were fated to reunite. Slay calmly addresses Basil, suggesting they take a step back from the topic. He asks the others to consider how they would react to a supposed adult fervently discussing such things. Basil is left sweating and speechless. Slay takes charge of the now quiet room to make a point clear. He states that their founders' love life is irrelevant, their reason for existing is to pass their arts to Lyall. Lyall is reminded of their purpose, realizing they are not just there to harass him. Slay agrees it is time to address the main topic, blaming the pointless chatter for the delay. Max states that as a lord, he understands being fed up with obstacles. He explains that Lyall needs to learn the founder's art, the body-enhancing ability, full over before they can proceed. Basil points defiantly, saying there is no way he will teach his art to such a brat. Lyall is shocked by Basil's refusal. Crassel covers his face in frustration. Slay laughs, remarking that their founder just flat out denied their reason for being there. An ancestor yells at Basil to quit sulking and teach Lyall his art to fix his mana problem, but Basil denies sulking. Basil sticks his tongue out, proclaiming that he is a dreamer lost in delusions of first loves, not a proper adult. Crassel finally loses his temper, screaming that Basil is a damn shitty father. Lyall shouts at them to knock off their childish arguments, declaring his intent to protect Arya. Slay calls an end to the meeting for the day, promising to continue the discussion later. As morning breaks over the city, birds begin to chirp. Lyall wakes up in bed, looking utterly exhausted. Lyall sits up in his bed, dazed. He looks at the duel, thinking the experience was a nightmare and that it is finally over. The scene shifts to the exterior of Darian's guild. Their instructor informs them that after 3 weeks, it is time to move on to the next step. She announces that they will be taking a request that leads them outside the city. Hearing that the request is outside the city walls, Lyall wonders if it could finally be a real quest. The instructor tells them to prepare for departure and reveals that they are taking a monster extermination request. The story moves to the grand building of Darian's guild. A guild official asks a dark-haired woman for her evaluation of Lyall, and she replies that he seems to be doing well lately. The man adds that Lyall works seriously without complaint, unlike other former nobles, which makes him happy. The official questions if Lyall's noble status is the real reason she's watching him, but Zelfi insists she's just a regular adventurer. The official apologizes, acknowledging her cover story, as Zelfi questions him for bringing up the Lord in public. Zelfi changes the subject, drawing his attention to another group. She explains they are a new group in Darian that has been causing a lot of trouble recently and asks what the real story is. The guild official starts to explain that policy prevents him from sharing information on associates. He spots Lyall and Novem arriving and asks Zelfi to attend to them. Zelfi agrees, commenting that the cushy instructor job is a huge help since the rich kids are so naive. The guild official wishes them luck on their monster extermination, quietly promising to keep her secret. Zelfi announces that their targets for today's hunting quest will be slimes. She explains that a slime can be defeated by either bursting its skin or destroying its core. She quickly defeats one, cautioning that their movements are surprisingly fast and agile. Zelfi warns that even against small fries like slimes, getting surrounded can quickly turn a situation dangerous. She tells Lyall not to get overconfident and to always proceed with caution. Zelfi points out another slime and tells Lyall it's his turn to show what he can do. Lyall eagerly accepts the challenge. He draws his blade, ready for battle. Zelfi observes Lyall, commenting that he looks good and seems used to handling a sword. One of his ancestors scoffs, saying a thin sword suits a scrawny kid, while a real man would use a greatsword. Lyall grows annoyed as the rest of the peanut gallery in his head chimes in with their own weapon recommendations. The slime hops towards him. Lyall shifts his weight and prepares to attack. He dashes forward, unleashing 2 quick slashes. Standing over the defeated slime, Lyall comments that it was surprisingly easy. Zelfi is impressed, saying she has changed her opinion of Lyall after seeing him avoid the core and neatly divide the skin. Lyall thanks her, while his ancestors offer a mix of criticism and defense of his abilities. Zelfi explains that they must now collect the materials, as both the core and skin can be sold. Lyall reluctantly agrees. Basil manifests beside him, complaining about how sticky the slime is. Suddenly, Basil gets a bad feeling. He urgently tells Lyall to draw his sword and prepare for battle. Lyall draws his sword and warns the others that they are being watched. Impressed by his awareness, Zelfi orders them to watch their surroundings and tells Novem to stay in the center. The rustling of feet can be heard in the undergrowth. A horde of goblins reveals itself from the woods. Lyall shouts that they're here, and Zelfi identifies them as a goblin horde, which is rare so close to the city. Zelfi counts 8 goblins in front of her and 4 on Lyall's side, questioning their presence. A goblin leaps towards her. She easily blocks the attack with her shield. Zelfi cuts down one of the attacking goblins. With 1 down and 11 to go, she tells Lyall and Novem to run back to town while she covers their escape. Basil tells Lyall that she's just saying he's weighing her down and to do as she says. Lyall calmly tells Zelfi there's no need to worry and that she can leave this to him. Basil is shocked by Lyall's response. Zelfi is equally taken aback. Novem, however, looks on with a gentle smile. Slay's voice states that everyone has been underestimating Lyall and that the number of enemies doesn't matter. Another ancestor encourages Lyall, telling him it's time to show them his true abilities. Lyall asks Novem to watch his back as he prepares to charge. She agrees with a determined look, despite her trembling hands. Ignoring his companion's cry of concern, Lyall rushes forward. He moves to engage a charging goblin. The goblin's weapon smashes into the ground as Lyall deftly dodges the attack. Leaping into the air, he counters with a devastating downward slash that splits the creature's head in two. His companion watches in shock. An ancestral voice warns Lyall of 2 more enemies at his feet. Without missing a beat, Lyall lands and immediately confronts 2 new threats. He cuts down both goblins in a single fluid motion. He summons a fireball in his hand. Lyall unleashes the spell on another approaching enemy, engulfing it in flames. Basil's voice urgently warns Lyall of a goblin archer hiding in a nearby bush. Before the archer can fire, Novem casts a wind bullet spell. The spell tears through the air and strikes the hidden foe. Basil exclaims Novem's name, amazed at her timely and powerful assistance. With the immediate threats dispatched, the party continues their advance through the forest. Announcing that only 3 enemies are left, Lyall gathers crackling electricity in his hand. He unleashes a powerful electrical blast at the remaining goblins. Basil watches in astonishment, realizing that Lyall is a full-blown magician. He is stunned that Lyall could use this level of magic the entire time. Lyall rushes past his companion. He confidently tells her to leave the last 3 enemies to him, as he will finish them in one go. With a single devastating attack, Lyall unleashes a wave of dark energy that completely obliterates the terrified goblins, tearing them to pieces instantly. After his final attack, Lyall skids to a stop. He is left panting heavily from exhaustion. His companions call out his name in concern. Novem rushes to his side, praising his amazing performance. Lyall is shocked at his own weakness, realizing he's completely out of mana from an effort that would have been nothing in the past. Novem kneels beside the exhausted Lyall, asking if he's injured. The warrior woman correctly deduces he is just running low on mana. She reflects that his ability surpassed her expectations, being on the level of a genuine magician. However, what truly shocked her was his unnatural sword technique. An unseen woman observes that Lyall's sword is wielded with a deep, vengeful obsession and an intense determination that is almost like a curse, as if he is desperate to overcome some insurmountable wall. The warrior recalls that Lyall is the disinherited eldest son of the Walt house and admits she may have underestimated him. She had initially dismissed him as a naive rich kid, but now she wonders how to handle a former noble with such heavy baggage. She wonders what could have happened to shape him into the person he is now. A younger version of Lyall is depicted, shouting fiercely as he wields a glowing object amidst crackling lightning. A lone figure stands illuminated at the end of a long, shadowy alley. Arya approaches a disheveled man slumped against a wall, surrounded by empty bottles. She confronts him, stating that she has been looking for him and has found him in this place again. Arya's father looks up at her with a vacant, dazed expression. A man remarks on Arya's difficult life as she tries to help her father up. Arya looks on with a worried expression as she is told what a shame it is she's stuck looking after such a father. The business owner stands in his doorway, arms crossed, demanding payment for the debt. Arya humbly asks for a bit more time to pay the debt. The man clicks his tongue in annoyance. He reminds her that she made the same promise last week. He recounts how word is spreading about her father's irresponsible behavior. He points out that the amount owed is beyond what she can earn through conventional work. The man makes an indecent proposal, offering to help her find work in a brothel. He pressures Arya, suggesting it's the only way for a pretty but poor girl like her to make enough money. The group is seated inside the sweet shop Seal. A man asks Lyall if he's interested in increasing his mana pool. Lyall confirms that running low on mana has been a problem. One companion's suggestion of physical training is dismissed by another. Lyall concludes that growth is his only viable path to increasing his power. A waitress delivers an order to their table. The waitress wishes her customer well as he thanks her. A companion advises Lyall to focus on efficient mana usage instead. Lyall reflects on his ancestors' recklessness, while Basil praises Arya's character. A companion asks Arya about the recent price hikes, which she attributes to banditry. Lyall's friend remembers they have a job to get to. The group thanks Lyall for the meal and gets ready to depart for their job. Lyall's companions wave goodbye as they head out the door. Arya begins to clear the empty dishes from the table. Lyall suddenly brings up the topic of mana, asking Arya about her reserves. Encouraged by Basil, Lyall shows Arya his gem and asks if she possesses one as well. Arya reveals her own gem, but confesses her inability to use it. Lyall looks on with a pained, empathetic expression. Holding her gem, Arya shares her dream of becoming an adventurer to help her family. Arya apologizes for complaining, but Lyall reminds her of how she helped him previously. She laughs and agrees that they are even now. Although she enjoys her current job, Arya admits she is still envious of Lyall's life. Lyall expresses his jealousy, admitting there is much about himself that is no good. Arya reassures Lyall that it's fine if he's not perfect right now, as only a small minority succeed from the start. She explains that the crucial part is recognizing the need for change and working towards it. Lyall is moved by her wisdom, and Basil comments on her beautiful heart. Inspired, Lyall reaffirms his commitment to trying his best. Basil shouts in sudden realization. The other ancestors ask what he suddenly remembered. He recites the absurdly long and demanding list of requirements he created for a wife. He recalls how after his heart was broken, he drunkenly set impossible conditions for a future wife to fend off matchmaking attempts. Lyall reacts with shock and disbelief upon learning that Arya has been kidnapped. The woman confirms the situation, stating that it is a personal request directed to her. She explains that she chose to consult Lyall and Novem first since they are her current employers. The woman gestures to the battered man, identifying him as Arya's father, West Lockwood. Lyall is stunned to learn the identity of the injured man. He asks if the kidnappers were responsible for Lockwood's severe injuries. The woman bluntly states that she was the one who beat him up, shocking Lyall with the revelation. The woman sternly reminds everyone to stay focused, asserting that Lady Arya is the priority. West Lockwood begins to explain his dire situation, admitting he was drowning in debt with no one to help. He recounts how a man from a band of thieves offered him a job as a middleman. Lockwood explains that as his financial situation improved, he was entrusted with larger sums of money. Lyall grimly deduces that Lockwood ended up misusing the funds. Lockwood pleads with them to save Arya, revealing the bandits' plan to sell her to slave traders. The woman notes with concern that not only bandits, but also slave traders are now involved. A new arrival observes that the situation has gotten so bad that the entire town of Darian is becoming a problem. The woman recognizes the man, surprised to see her lordship there. Lyall and Novem are shocked to realize the lord is present. She whispers to him, reminding him he said he would not get involved in her job. Lord Lobernier formally introduces himself as the lord of the land, Bentler Lobernier, and Lyall responds in kind. Lyall's ancestors observe that the lord knew his name without an introduction, indicating he has done his research. Lord Lobernier suggests they continue with the story. He admits it was a miscalculation on his part, that Mr. Lockwood was helping the bandits infiltrate Darian. He expresses concern that they do not know how deeply the bandits have blended into the town, especially if they are using it for money laundering. Lord Lobernier reveals his suspicion that Darian is secretly collaborating with the bandits, which could lead to nearby lords suspecting him of harboring them. He explains that due to a recent labyrinth manifestation, all his troops are deployed, and he lacks the resources to spare anyone for Miss Arya. Lyall can't believe what he's hearing, while his ancestor calls the Lord useless. The ancestor's voice urges Lyall to speak up and take on the task himself. His ancestor's voice screams in his mind, calling him a damn coward and questioning if he's really a member of the Walt family. Lyall feels a strange sensation wash over him, noting that he is not out of mana. He suddenly collapses onto the table, shocking everyone present. Novem cries out in alarm, wondering why Lord Lyall collapsed. Lyall's mind is pulled into a familiar yet strange place, the room of the round table where his ancestors await. Basil scolds Lyall, calling his attitude awful and his desire to save Arya reckless. Slay explains that Lyall doesn't understand the implications, as Arya's father committed a serious felony that could lead to their entire family being punished. Max coldly states that at best, Arya would be sent to the mines or forced into prostitution, suggesting that being bought by a rich man as a slave might be a better outcome. Basil furiously retorts, asking who cares about the consequences and if it is wrong to want to save someone. He questions if hiding behind pathetic excuses is the right thing to do and demands to know where Lyall's pride is. He declares that Lyall should have boldly proclaimed he would save her, calling him a stain on the Walt house. Basil's words cut deep, and a tear rolls down Lyall's cheek. Basil is confused by the reaction, asking why Lyall is crying during their conversation. Crassel tells Basil that his way of talking is too harsh and that he should be more considerate of Lyall. Crassel reminds Basil that Lyall has been trying harder than anyone to live up to the family name after being cast away. He points out that calling him a stain on the Walt house hits him where it hurts the most, though Basil insists he didn't mean it that way. Slay addresses Lyall, saying he understands how he feels and wants to offer some advice. Slay advises Lyall that crying is a waste of time. The most important thing is to decide what he wants to do and move forward. He clarifies that while they are recreated memories, that is not entirely true. These memories contain wisdom they can share, so Lyall just needs to tell them what he wants to do. Lyall considers what he truly wants to do, clenching his fist in resolve. Basil is taken aback by Lyall's emotional outburst. In the grand hall, Lyall shouts that he just does not know what to do. He cries, feeling helpless and lamenting his inability to do anything by himself. Slay calmly tells Lyall that his ability is not the issue and that they will not judge him if he decides to run. Basil reassures Lyall that they won't get upset and simply want him to be honest. Lyall quietly considers his own honest feelings. He begins to speak but hesitates. The thought of helping a smiling Arya gives Lyall clarity. Lyall grits his teeth and declares that he wants to help Arya. Another one of his ancestors echoes Lyall's sentiment. Slay smiles, stating that it's only natural he would want to. Basil protests being left out, insisting that Lyall has the backing of all 6 of them. He angrily questions why he is being excluded when he is the most motivated to save her. Crassel bluntly tells Basil that he is not needed. Another ancestor calls Basil a frustrating burden for refusing to teach Lyall his art while giving selfish orders. An ancestor attempts to begin a strategy meeting. Lyall is surprised as Basil suddenly agrees to help. Basil declares that for Arya's sake, he will teach Lyall his art. Lyall's eyes sparkle with excitement, but Basil quickly tells him to stop and clarifies he will only teach him the first stage. Crassel decides it is about time and offers to teach Lyall his art as well. Slay remarks that his own art is likely too advanced for Lyall at the moment. Max chimes in, noting that his art is quite useful and convenient. Lyall awakens from his trance-like state. A nearby woman calls out to Lord Lyall in surprise. Slay's voice in his head tells him to calm down, as barely any time has passed. Lyall jumps to his feet and calls out to Lord Bentler. He declares that he has a proposal, a surefire plan. Miss Zelphi tries to tell Lyall the problem is beyond him, but Lord Bentler permits him to speak. A man encourages Lyall to continue, noting that he seems to have a good idea. Lord Bentler asks if Lyall's plan pertains to the rescue of Miss Arya. Lyall looks back with determination, ready to explain. With his ancestors behind him, Lyall states that his plan will benefit them both. The focus shifts to an abandoned mine site, the bandits' base of operations. A deep cavern serves as the bandits' hideout. A group of bandits surveys their surroundings. The bandit leader inspects a gem, noting its quality. The bandit chief Boraz sits confidently on his throne. He grins, asking if the stolen items are a perfect fit for him. Arya demands that Boraz return her gem. Boraz laughs at her audacity, sarcastically calling her Lady Lockwood. He taunts her, saying her demands lack weight given her current state. One of the bandits asks if they must hand her over, but Boraz explains her value as a noble means she shouldn't be touched. Boraz's expression turns sinister as he gets an idea. He voices his second thoughts, and Arya looks on in horror. Boraz decides that having a little taste would be worth the drop in her value, leaving Arya in a perilous situation. Lyall Walt offers his services as an adventurer to Lord Bentler for 200 gold coins. Lord Bentler finds the offer ambitious, questioning if a rookie adventurer is worth such a price. Miss Zelphi angrily dismisses Lyall as a cocky, second-rate brat. Lord Bentler intervenes, suggesting they hear Lyall's full story. Lyall politely thanks Lord Bentler for the opportunity to speak. Internally, Lyall panics about having angered Zelphi, while an ancestor's voice urges him to stay calm. Lyall addresses Lord Bentler, asking for a chance to present his evidence. He asserts that the bandits' lack of strategic planning is evident in how they used Arya's father to infiltrate Darian. An ancestor elaborates that the bandits' sole motivation is quick cash. Lord Bentler realizes the bandits' goal is not to topple the government but simply for financial gain. Lyall confirms this, stating that a more ambitious group would have already started spreading rumors to justify a war. Lord Bentler admits to himself that his initial impression of Lyall as a spoiled brat was wrong. He feels as though he is conversing with a shrewd and experienced aristocrat. Lord Bentler accepts Lyall's offer, agreeing to prepare the 200 gold coins. Lyall, now ready to proceed, listens as his ancestor cheers him on. At an abandoned mine outside Darian, a commotion begins. A bandit bursts in, frantically shouting for his chief to report that they are in trouble. The bandit chief angrily demands to know why he was interrupted. The messenger reports that Darian is making a move, surprising the chief. He clarifies that it is not soldiers but a force of 200 adventurers coming to raid them. The chief expresses his disbelief at the news of 200 attackers. The messenger clarifies that Bentler is not the one behind the attack. The chief angrily demands to know who else could have orchestrated such a move. The operation is being funded by a rich fool trying to gain fame through a so-called bandit purge. The person responsible is revealed to be a naive noble named Lyall. Arya Lockwood is startled, her heart pounding as she processes the bandit's words. A bandit chief laughs, mocking the pathetic noble brat for gathering fodder adventurers. Arya realizes with a throb of fear that the bandit must be referring to Lyall. She is torn between hope that he came for her and terror that the mission is too dangerous. As the large caravan rumbles on, Arya prays that Lyall will just forget about her. A group of adventurers riding in a wagon remarks on the impressive sight of over 200 gathered fighters. A female adventurer smirks, recalling the spectacle of Lyall's speech. In a flashback, Lyall stands before a crowd, declaring his noble quest to end the bandits' tyranny and rescue a maiden. Lyall explains with some embarrassment that he was desperate and followed a script his ancestors devised. His companion questions the exceptionally generous reward of 3 silver coins just for showing up. Another adventurer comments that while they have the illusion of an army, it's merely a paper tiger, as most have never fought. A blonde woman explains that this evaluation is exactly what they sought, as everything is proceeding according to Lord Lyall's masterful calculations. She reveals that from the beginning, bandit spies hidden among them have been sending reports of their activities. A bandit laughs maniacally at the report of a glory-hungry noble leading non-combatants into what he perceives as a slaughter. The strategist explains that Lyall's plan has successfully anchored the bandits who would have otherwise fled, and now they will dance like puppets until their ruin. She confidently states that the bandits have underestimated Lord Lyall and will soon choke on their arrogance. His ancestors Max and Basil tell Lyall that with their arts at his disposal, the battle is as good as won. Basil earnestly asks Lyall to please save little Arya. Lyall is taken aback, wondering if the first generation just sincerely asked him for a favor. He gives his determined assent. The adventurers make camp for the night near the mines, sleeping in the open. A hooded spy among the adventurers smirks, his part of the plan complete. After observing the sleeping camp, the spy turns to leave. He stealthily makes his way through the dark forest. He arrives at the entrance to the bandits' hideout, carved into a cliff face. The spy enters the bandits' den to deliver his report. The bandit chief listens intently. The chief asks how things are looking and if there have been any changes to their plan. The spy reports that their opponents are amateurs, sleeping like babies right outside and planning to face them at dawn. The chief scoffs at the report. He laughs, calling it easy pickings, just as he expected from a sheltered noble brat. He rallies his men, telling them to take up arms for a night raid. Confident in their plan, the chief declares they will slit the fools' necks before sunrise, but is interrupted by the sight of smoke. A thick cloud of smoke billows out from the direction of the adventurers' camp. The bandits are immediately overcome, choking and complaining that their eyes are burning. The chief covers his mouth, recognizing the smell as some sort of medicinal herb. He curses, enraged by the unexpected tactic. The source of the smoke is burning hakon grass, which releases irritant fumes. Novem and another mage use magic to fan the smoke from the burning grass. The wind carries the thick smoke directly into the entrance of the mine. Lyall observes from a distance, telling his mages to keep it up and noting that it appears to be working. A nearby adventurer asks in amazement if Lyall can really see what is going on inside, to which he confirms. Lyall understands why his ancestors felt the need to wait for this moment. The jewels that grant these arts bypass any learning process, forcing instant mastery on the user. The fifth generation's map analyzes the area, while the sixth search distinguishes friend from foe. Lyall explains that by using their arts, at the same time, he can clearly see all of the bandits' movements. Lyall counts 35 bandits, confirming the number matches their intel, while Basil reminds him this is only possible due to his full over. He shouts a warning to Zelfi and Ralph, telling them to get ready for 4 incoming enemies. The mine entrance rumbles as the bandits begin to emerge. Disoriented bandits burst out of the smoke, gagging and gasping for air. His companions swiftly engage and defeat the stumbling bandits. The first wave of enemies falls to the ground, defeated. Lyall relays that 6 more bandits are incoming, while his ancestor reminds him to give orders to the mages. Lyall instructs Novem to keep a spell on standby and provide support as soon as the next group appears. The ground begins to shake, putting his party on high alert. Lyall senses a new presence, noting that this one is different. He perceives an overwhelming mass of hostility barreling its way out, trampling any obstacles. Lyall warns his team to watch out, identifying the approaching force as the enemy leader. With a massive explosion, the mine's entrance is completely destroyed. Lyall is forced to jump back to avoid the blast. A golem-like figure emerges from the dust, declaring the trick unforgivable. Lyall glares back furious and tells the bandit he will regret that cheap shot. The bandit chief, Lord Boraz, emerges from the smoke, demanding to know where the so-called foolish noble brat is and swearing to turn him into a bloody smear. In a snowy clearing, a large warrior bellows for the cowardly blue-blood Lyall to reveal himself. The warrior Boraz snarls, vowing to end Lyall's life right here and now. Prompted by an ancestor's voice, Lyall steps forward and calmly introduces himself. Boraz's rage intensifies as he recognizes Lyall. He charges forward, swinging his massive axe and promising to make Lyall regret their encounter. Lyall's companion is shocked, wondering how such a colossal man can move so fast. Even Lyall is surprised by the incredible speed of the attack. With a loud clang, Lyall successfully parries the massive axe. Lyall struggles to hold back the immense force of Boraz's strike. He grits his teeth, straining against the powerful blow. An ancestor points out he narrowly avoided being chopped in half, prompting an annoyed Lyall to ask for real advice. One of Lyall's ancestors thoughtfully suggests they should back up some more. Lyall leads the chase straight into the forest. Boraz acknowledges that fighting in the enclosed space gives his opponent a tactical advantage. Enraged by the evasion, Boraz screams for Lyall to hurry up and die. Lyall activates his ancestor's ability, causing his opponent's movements to appear in slow motion. Lyall easily evades a wide swing from Boraz's axe. He closes the distance and deflects the massive weapon with a precise counterattack. Boraz is shocked and enraged that his attack was deflected. Lyall continues to expertly parry the relentless assault. One of Lyall's ancestors observes the fight, admitting that Lyall is quite skilled with his parries. Lyall continues to deflect the barrage of heavy strikes. The fierce clash of their weapons echoes through the forest. Lyall quickly closes the distance, refusing to give his opponent a moment's rest. Boraz curses in frustration at Lyall's relentless advance. Rondo watches the fight, stunned by Lyall's insane display of power. He recalls how he once thought Lyall lacked the resolve to be an adventurer. Yet now, Lyall is matching the monstrous Boraz blow for blow, without giving up any ground. Rondo resolves to step in and help Lyall. Lyall tells him to fall back and support the others, insisting he can handle this fight by himself. Realizing it's the right call, Rondo reluctantly agrees and tells Lyall to be careful. Boraz is incensed that Lyall believes he can handle him alone. In a fit of rage, he tears off his own armor, screaming that he will not be made a fool of. With a furious roar, Boraz charges with newfound speed. A distant ally warns Lyall that his opponent is much faster now, but Lyall insists he can handle it. He continues to parry the relentless, accelerated assault. Boraz is baffled by his opponent's skill. He cannot understand how Lyall is still deflecting every one of his all-out swings. Deciding on a new tactic, he begins to charge his axe with crackling energy. Boraz reasons that if all Lyall can do is read and deflect his attacks, he just needs one good hit. He prepares a single, overwhelming blow intended to cleave Lyall in half. An ancestor screams a desperate warning for Lyall to dodge the incoming attack instead of trying to parry it. Boraz unleashes a powerful, ranged slash with his axe. The attack cuts cleanly through the trees in the clearing. Lyall is caught off guard as one of his ancestors remarks that his instincts about Boraz's ability to use a flying slash were correct. Watching from a distance, Novem and her armored companion cry out for Lord Lyall in alarm. Lyall manages to dodge the devastating ranged attack. Lyall shouts for Novem to stay back for her own safety. Novem struggles against her companion's grip, wanting to help, but is told to calm down. Lyall remains poised and ready, his will to fight still strong. A trickle of blood runs down his face, but his expression is determined. The armored woman warns Novem that a single wrong move could get them both killed, questioning if she thinks they can avoid the invisible slashes. Novem looks on anxiously, unable to just watch the fight unfold. Her companion confronts her, asking if her behavior means she has no faith in Lyall. The woman continues, asking if Novem actually believes Lyall is inferior to the bandit in a one-on-one fight. Novem is taken aback by the pointed question. She closes her eyes and offers her deepest apologies, admitting there is no excuse for her behavior. With a confident smile, she states that she should never have had any room for doubt. Novem's faith is absolute as she watches Lyall. Meanwhile, an ancestor advises that while parrying the next attack would get him bisected, Lyall has the right art to handle it. Bleeding all over, Boraz swings his axe and declares that the next slash will cleave Lyall in half. Lyall states that there isn't going to be a next time. Boraz is taken aback by his opponent's confidence. Lyall clarifies that he is telling him this is the end of the line. Lyall suddenly vanishes in a burst of speed. Boraz looks on in shock. He looks around confusedly, wondering how his opponent disappeared. He grits his teeth in frustration, demanding to know where the brat went. Boraz grunts in surprise as Lyall appears behind him. Lyall has closed the distance in an instant, ready to strike. An ancestor explains that the fourth generation's art, speed, provides a stable boost to the user's movement. Boraz snarls in disbelief at Lyall's sudden reappearance. Lyall clenches his daggers, ready for a swift assault. Boraz curses him for scrambling around like a pest. Lyall's eyes narrow as he focuses on his target. He moves with incredible speed, weaving around Boraz and landing multiple strikes. Boraz gasps in pain as his torso is covered in deep cuts. Lyall lands another decisive blow on the bandit's back. Watching from afar, a girl cheers for Lord Lyall, while her panicked companion calls for Novem's assistance. Despite his injuries, Boraz grits his teeth and forms a sinister grin. Boraz's muscles begin to tear and crack under immense strain. His flesh creaks as it forcibly knits itself back together. Lyall realizes Boraz is using an art to increase his muscle mass and force his wounds shut. He roars, demanding more and more power. Boraz unleashes a powerful wild swing that Lyall deftly dodges. The enhanced bandit roars, vowing to kill his opponent. An ancestor notes that Boraz's body is turning red and his blood vessels have ruptured from being unable to handle the enhancements. The ancestor suddenly recognizes the item Boraz is using as Arya's gem and urges Lyall to get it back. Lyall coolly responds that it is no problem, as he has already seen through all of Boraz's movements. Lyall's confidence evaporates as Boraz suddenly appears directly in front of him, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. Boraz executes a devastating cleaving strike. An ancestor identifies the move as a long-range art adapted for melee combat, a technique that allows Boraz to strike from a distance with the force of a close-quarters blow, leaving Lyall stunned. The blow lands, shattering Lyall's defenses completely. Watching from the sidelines, Novem screams his name in terror. The force of Boraz's powerful cleave sends Lyall flying backward. He crashes violently into the ground, coughing up blood from the devastating impact. His companions can only watch in horror. Lyall slumps against a tree, seemingly defeated and unresponsive. From a distance, Novem's desperate pleas for him to get up can be heard. In an instant, the forest vanishes, replaced by a peaceful, unfamiliar town. Lyall finds himself standing uninjured and completely bewildered by the sudden shift. Panicked, Lyall wonders if he has died, his last memory being the fight against Boraz. Suddenly, his ancestor, Basil Walt, appears and tells him to calm down, explaining that he called him inside the duel. Basil clarifies that he has summoned Lyall into his personal room of memories. Lyall frantically insists he has no time and must be sent back, but Basil tells him to relax. Basil reassures him that he'll be returned before Boraz can land a final blow. Lyall angrily tells him to stop talking as if it's not his problem and to follow him. Basil smirks and announces his plan to teach him the second stage of his arts. Lyall is shocked at the mention of the second stage. His shock instantly turns to beaming excitement. His enthusiasm annoys Basil, who retorts that this training is only necessary because Lyall is so weak. Their bickering continues as they arrive at a large house. Basil explains that this modest building is his childhood home, as his family was nobility in name only. He recalls that the wars were endless and incredibly expensive. When Lyall questions the relevance to his training, Basil directs his attention to a younger version of himself. Lyall is stunned by the sight, and Basil chides him for his over-the-top reaction. Basil points out his younger self keeping watch from behind a tree. He then gestures toward a noblewoman, Miss Alice, asking if she reminds Lyall of anyone. Lyall is shocked by her striking resemblance to Arya. Basil confesses that his younger self was determined to become a man worthy of her. The memory shifts to a younger Basil confronting his superior, accusing the man of stealing credit for a monster he defeated. The commander dismisses his claim, stating that as the leader, all merits belong to him. Watching this, Lyall critiques Basil's approach, earning a sharp rebuke from his ancestor. Basil explains that this incident prompted him to go independent and form his own pioneering corps. Lyall's comment about having heard the story before irritates Basil, who insists on retelling it. He recounts how he built his reputation by taking on the most dangerous, suicidal missions available. He recalls one such mission, the extermination of a giant brown bear. Basil admits that in those days, he was completely outmatched and couldn't even scratch the formidable beast. Lyall nervously asks if this is where Basil died, earning a loud denial from his ancestor. Basil explains that while facing certain death, his sheer resolve to survive and win was absolute. This resolve triggered an awakening, unlocking an art that surpassed his full overbody enhancement. Basil introduces the new art, Limit Burst, an ability to power up beyond his body's capabilities. He explains that unlike Full Over, which strengthens baseline abilities, Limit Burst transcends them. It completely shatters the body's boundaries, leaving Lyall speechless with awe. When Lyall eagerly asks how to activate it, Basil tells him he should already be able to. He explains that Lyall's consciousness is inhabiting his memories. He instructs Lyall to synchronize with his body and remember the sensation. As Lyall focuses, Basil confirms that he is beginning to grasp it. Boraz looks on in surprise. Lyall's consciousness snaps back to the present, and he pushes himself up from the ground. The bandit expresses his shock that Lyall is still able to stand after taking such a devastating blow. A woman with elven ears looks on with concern, calling out Lyall's name. Lyall's eyes widen with a fierce, almost crazed look of determination. The scarred man, Boraz, senses the shift in atmosphere around Lyall and mocks his lack of a weapon. He lets out a small laugh, completely unfazed. Lyall casually discards his cape, finding Boraz's words funny. He takes a fighting stance, challenging Boraz to prove he is not scared. Boraz leaps into the air, charging at Lyall with his axe. Livid, he screams that he will kill Lyall and shove his limbs down his throat. Lyall analyzes the attack, identifying it as an art called Slash, which uses magic for propulsion. The voice in his head notes that since it's a basic ability, it can be countered if one knows the movement. Lyall acknowledges the information, understanding how to proceed. Boraz executes his close quarters melee art, while Lyall stands ready to counter. Lyall activates his new power, Limit Burst, as he dodges Boraz's attack and leaps into the air. Lyall soars through the air, having evaded the attack. A stunned Boraz watches as Lyall moves past him. With a determined roar, Lyall channels energy into his fist. Boraz grits his teeth in frustration, shocked that his seemingly inescapable attack was dodged. Lyall's fist collides with Boraz's face with incredible force. The impact creates a massive crater, a testament to the power of the meteor impact attack. A massive explosion erupts in the distance from the force of the blow. Basil dismisses the attack, claiming it was nothing more than a simple punch. The powerful shockwave from the impact rips through the forest. Boraz's face is shown, completely mangled from the force of the punch. The bandit lies motionless in the crater created by the impact. As the dust settles, Lyall sees the axe spinning through the air. He reaches out and catches the weapon. Lyall stands over his defeated opponent and declares that he has won. Novem calls out to Lord Lyall as she runs towards him. She throws her arms around him in a tight hug. A A female companion gently reminds Novem not to be so affectionate in front of others. Slay praises Lyall for turning a simple punch into a cataclysmic strike, while Basil proudly credits his limit-burst art. The other adventurers crowd around Lyall, telling him he was amazing and full of surprises. One of the adventurers explains that they took care of the remaining bandits after noticing the fight. An adventurer confirms that Arya and the other captives are safe, much to Lyall's relief. Lyall suggests they pack up and return to Darian, but asks for a moment. A cloaked figure interrupts, asking Lyall to hand over the battle axe. A mysterious woman in a black cloak states that the battle axe is a keepsake from her father and warns Lyall that she may use force if he does not comply. A mysterious woman in a black cloak approaches Lyall and his companions, introducing herself as Sophia, a daughter of House Rawley. She explains that the battle axe is all she has left of her father and that she joined the subjugation force to reclaim the heirloom. Lyall hands the axe back to her, and Sophia is shocked that he would return it so easily. She protests, insisting that it's his rightful spoils of war and that she must compensate him with gold. Lyall cheerfully refuses the payment, explaining that he always intended to return any stolen goods. Sophia is left speechless, holding her reclaimed axe. As Lyall waves and prepares to leave, she quickly stops him. She demands to know why he would put his life on the line, only to discard his reward so easily. From his shoulder, a spirit comments on how straight-laced Sophia is. Lyall recalls a grand, fabricated speech about being a noble brat seeking fame and glory. A rescued captive reflects that she has gotten what she came for. Novem watches Lyall with concern, as he admits he's barely holding on due to his depleted mana. Her uncle explains that Lyall's act of playing the fool was a brilliant move to end tensions between territories. Overcome with emotion, Sophia laments that it was her fight, but she wasn't strong enough. Crying, she tells her uncle she cannot forgive her own weakness and vows that she needs to become stronger. Her uncle smiles, pleased with her declaration. He pats her head, approving of her newfound resolve. Sophia declares that she will grow stronger. She resolves to become just like Lyall, seeing him and his group as an ideal. Several days after the defeat of the bandits, the scene shifts to a grand government building. A lord formally extends his gratitude to Lyall's party for their hard work. Lyall, flustered, insists there's no need for thanks, as he was only following his ancestors' guidance. Novem tells Lord Lyall that he has every right to be proud of his accomplishment. The Lord declares this a monumental first step on Lyall's path to greatness. He proposes a 3-day festival and a new official holiday to commemorate Lyall Walt. Panicked by the grand gesture, Lyall begs the Lord to continue with the meeting. The Lord reveals the true reason for the audience. The Lockwood family were the instigators. The Lord announces that a sentence has been decided for 2 individuals. West Lockwood desperately pleads with Lord Bentler, claiming full responsibility and begging for his daughter to be spared. Lord Bentler states that as the Lord of Darian, he cannot play favorites, especially with neighboring lords watching. He regretfully informs them that their sins will extend to the entire family. As the sentencing for West Lockwood begins, he continues to plead for his daughter's mercy. West is sentenced to spend the rest of his life in hard labor as one of Darian's frontier settlers. Lyall and his companion listen, as it's explained that this means backbreaking labor like road construction and land clearing. He cries out in desperation, offering to do any work if it means his daughter will be pardoned. Lord Bentler moves on to deliver the verdict for Arya Lockwood. An onlooker remarks that blood binds the guilty, and a family shares in its sin. Lord Bentler sentences Arya to compensate for Darian's losses with her body, condemning her to life as a harlot. With grim determination, Arya quietly accepts her fate. Lyall erupts in anger, shouting at Lord Bentler. Because Lyall fiercely opposed the verdict, a different arrangement was made. As compensation for his efforts, custody of Arya Lockwood is transferred to him, leaving her stunned. Lyall is shocked by the sudden turn of events. A woman is equally confused by the situation. Novem calmly explains to a bewildered Lyall that they have reached a peaceful resolution. Lyall's ancestors realize the clever loophole Lord Bentler used, officially sentencing Arya to a brothel, but immediately arranging for Lyall to purchase her freedom. Lord Bentler confirms with Novem that their agreed-upon outcome has been achieved. Novem beams in agreement. Lyall and Basil are left utterly confused. Bentler laughs, admitting he was skeptical when Novem first explained Lyall's supposed true goal. Bentler imagines Lyall's true ambition was to create a harem. Lyall himself reacts in sheer shock. Bentler muses that he had misjudged Lyall. This causes Arya to blush and wonder about Lyall's intentions. Lyall frantically denies ever wanting a harem, but Novem reminds him of a past conversation. A flashback reveals Lyall once boasted about wanting to be surrounded by women, a lie he told in hopes of persuading Novem to return home. His ancestors overhear, with one expressing disappointment at his grandson's seemingly trivial ambitions. Arya's father weeps, blaming his own incompetence for the situation but seeing Lyall's motives as a far better alternative to a brothel. Arya stares at Lyall. Arya calls out to Lyall, who jumps in surprise. She earnestly expresses her profound gratitude for everything he has done. Flustered, Arya agrees to be in Lyall's care, hoping he will not ask her to do anything too strange. Lyall is still reeling from the turn of events. He demands to know when Novem made such a deal with Arya. Novem serenely replies that building a harem is his purpose and she intends to help him fulfill it. Lyall's ancestors discuss the situation, concluding that being with Lyall is a much better fate for Arya. Novem declares that Arya is a worthy match who fulfills the conditions to marry into the Walt family. Arya is surprised by Novem's words. She asks Novem if she is truly okay with this arrangement. Novem explains that her only desire is to support Lyall's happiness, comparing herself to the soil where his dreams can grow. Her devotion leaves Arya in stunned silence. Lord Bentler, sighing, decides to entrust the matter to them, simply asking Lyall to behave with some moderation. Lyall tries to explain the massive misunderstanding. A woman named Zelfi approaches and thanks him. She reveals that her family once served the Lockwoods, and she viewed Arya as a little sister. She tells Lyall there is something she must say to him. With a chilling intensity, Zelfi declares Lyall an enemy of all women. Her accusation leaves Lyall speechless. His ancestor Basil erupts in boisterous laughter. Lyall's ancestors review their recent accomplishments, noting that while they spent a lot of gold, they gained a reputation and wiped out the bandits. Basil points out the adventurers they paid will likely waste the money on women and drink. Max confirms this was their exact plan, as the adventurers will spread tales of Lyall's valor across the land. As predicted, adventurers in taverns will boast of serving in Lyall Walt's core. Basil complains about being kept in the dark, while Crassel scoffs that he would not have noticed anyway. Slay is just glad he finally got to teach Lyall his arts. Max, however, ponders the true reason for their revival as recreated memories. The ancestors discuss the nature of the jewel, which was once a simple gem that evolved by reacting to Lyall, manifesting them from the memories of its past owners. They question the necessity of this evolution, feeling it is more than what is needed to simply teach their skills. Basil dismisses the overthinking, grateful that it allowed him to meet Novem. Max sighs at Basil's carefree nature. Crassel advises him to just ignore it. Basil reflects on how he took the simple, blank gem with him when he left home. Now he wonders about the ultimate purpose of their existence. The story continues at the Grand Adventurers Guild in Darian. Lyall enters the bustling guild hall, immediately drawing the attention of the patrons. The adventurers begin to whisper amongst themselves, recognizing him as the one who led the bandit subjugation. They murmur in disbelief that a mere kid could take down a bandit chief by himself. Basil chuckles, noting how fast word got around, while another ancestor suggests Lyall will now be known as the Bandit Hunter. Lyall is shocked to hear the crowd referring to him as the stupid noble brat. Basil laughs uncontrollably, pointing out that they are spreading his stupid antics, not his achievements, while Lyall agonizes over the fact that he called himself that in the first place. Zelfi feels a formal introduction is a bit late, but necessary. She announces to the group that Arya will be their new party member. Arya stands nervously as she is introduced. Arya nervously explains that she has no experience and is sure she will cause them trouble. Lyall listens with a reassuring smile. Novem smiles kindly as Arya promises not to be a burden and asks for their care. Lyall reassures Arya that she is a completely free person. Arya listens quietly to his words. She acknowledges that she knows this already. Winking playfully, she explains her dire situation and asks to stay with him until she can save enough money to free her father. Arya shyly asks if her request is no good. Her eyes flutter with hopeful anticipation. Lyall is completely flustered by how cute she is. Basil yells at a stunned Lyall to propose to her on the spot, while Lyall stammers that it's fine as long as Arya agrees. With the matter settled, they both happily look forward to working together. Zelfi slams her hands on the table, calling Lyall's words empty and insincere. With terrifying eyes, she asks if this is all the resolve he can manage when Arya's life is on the line. Novem brightly chimes in that she will help build a splendid harem he can be proud of, which Zelfi notes does not make her feel better. Basil warns Lyall that he is dead meat if he ever makes Arya cry, much to Lyall's distress. Zelfi begins to explain the plan for moving forward. Suddenly, an armored man calls out to Lyall, saying he has brought a guest to meet him. A woman named Sophia arrives, thanking Lyall for his recent help. Flustered, Lyall insists it was just a coincidence, but she refuses to accept his charity. She declares that even though her house has been destroyed, she has not lost her pride as a noble. To express her gratitude, Sophia decides to give Lyall the only thing she has to offer, her body. Her declaration leaves Lyall, Zelfi, and Arya completely shocked. Lyall yells in disbelief, asking Sophia if she realizes what she just said, confirming he is very much dissatisfied with her pledge. Sophia clears her throat, apologizing and offering to clear up the misunderstanding. Sophia loudly proclaims that she is there to give Lyall her body and will work off her debt to him in that manner, further solidifying the massive misunderstanding in the minds of everyone present. The entire Guildhall is thrown into chaos by her declaration. Sophia seems confused by the commotion she has caused. Lyall is horrified as he realizes what everyone must be thinking. The crowd begins to murmur about what they've just heard. The rumors quickly escalate, painting Lyall as a womanizing pervert who tricked a woman into his bed. The armored adventurer angrily confronts Lyall, saying he's misjudged him as an amazing person when he's just a womanizer. Lyall frantically tries to tell everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. He panics as he feels a dark presence behind him. Zelfi glares daggers at him, declaring him the enemy of all women. Sophia apologizes profusely for giving everyone the wrong impression with her poor choice of words. With the misunderstanding cleared up, the situation finally calms down. Basil congratulates Lyall on his new title of womanizer, but Lyall thinks his old title was better. Zelfi sets aside the previous misunderstanding and asks Sophia directly if she wants to join Lyall's party. Sophia confirms this is correct, expressing her intent to devote the rest of her life to honoring her debt of gratitude. Zelfi turns the question to a stunned Lyall, asking how he will respond. Lyall can't believe what he's hearing, questioning if she really just pledged the rest of her life. Overwhelmed, Lyall demands to know what is going on, as his companions remind him he just took responsibility for Arya. A woman from the guild grants Sophia a provisional pass, stating that she will monitor her conduct. A determined Sophia thanks her and promises to work her hardest for a full pass, while Lyall questions what she is agreeing to. Arya feels that the conversation about buying her freedom was swept under the rug. She wonders how Lyall truly feels about her presence and what he is actually thinking. Lyall internally panics, pleading that he and Sophia barely know each other. Lyall sleeps restlessly in his room. He sweats and grinds his teeth, clearly having a bad dream. In his nightmare, Basil laughs at him for losing his composure over the womanizer incident. Lyall shouts in his dream that of course he is having nightmares. He explains it's because the terrible nickname womanizer has stuck with him. The fifth head brushes him off, questioning what kind of man cannot provide for another woman or two. Lyall thinks it's impossible for him to do so, recalling that this very ancestor had 4 mistresses. Basil wishes Lyall had received a better nickname, while another ancestor remarks on his smug naming sense. The ancestors praise Lyall's amazing fighting style, noting his dexterity with a saber and dagger makes him a specialist. Lyall deflects the compliment, claiming anyone with 2 working hands could do what he did. Basil angrily tells him to stop talking like an amateur and underestimating his own abilities. Crassel speculates that perhaps only the 4th head could fight with such skill. Max admits that fighting with both a saber and a dagger is beyond his capabilities. Basil concludes that Lyall's growths must focus on a single attribute. The ancestors agree that knowing one's growth type makes it easier to choose a fighting style. Lyall raises his hand to interrupt their discussion. Lyall asks what they keep talking about, seeking to clarify if the word growth means something other than getting taller. His question leaves the entire group of ancestors completely shocked. The ancestors question if he seriously does not know, wondering if the term has changed since their deaths. Basil insists that at 15 years old, most people have gone through at least one growth, describing it as a feeling of suddenly becoming stronger. Slay describes the experience as a wave of lethargy and emptiness, followed by a sudden bounce back. Lyall finds their abstract descriptions unhelpful. Growth is defined as an explosive metamorphosis of the physical body, triggered by experience and training. One of the ancestors is blown